The demo for FF16 dropped today. I'll be trying it out with the RTX 3080, 4060, 2070 and the 1060. First GPU is the 3080 with 10 gigs of VRAM, playing at 1080p and playing at the high settings, which I believe is the max. Yeah, it's the max, can't go higher than this. Yep. High preset, VRS is enabled, no upscaling. Yeah, we're in here in this town. For me, this was the lowest point. I had like 58 FPS here. In the intro, it did fall down into the 60s as well at the very start. But after that, I was sitting into the 70s and the 80s. So yeah, not too bad over there. But in this area, it's very intensive, falling into the 60s quite easily. So yeah, the 3080 is now a 1080p card if you want to avoid using DLSS or any upscaling. It's pretty crazy. And I had a look online, and this game runs at 30 FPS on the PS5, and that's at 1440p upscale to 4K, and at a mix of like 40 up to 60 FPS at 1080p upscale to 1440p. And in the cutscenes, it is playing at 30, so keep that in mind. The game itself is uncapped, but the cutscenes are locked to 30, as far as I know anyway. Leaving the castle now, and yeah, the FPS is sitting into the 80s. That is pretty good actually, the 70s and the 80s. At the start in this section, it was sitting into the 60s, but it climbed back up, so no issues there. And for the stutters, it does a couple times, but for the most part, it is quite smooth, I would say. But 1080p 60 FPS on a 3080 is pretty crazy, especially since the graphics aren't really next gen. It does look nice, I would say, but yeah, I don't know. Like when you compare this to Avatar or like Alan Wake 2, those two games smoke this in terms of graphics. Alright, I'm back here again with the DLSS at the quality preset, and the FPS is doing much better. We're sitting into the 70s now with a 10% headroom on the GPU. Alright, let's keep going though. Yeah, at native I was sitting at like 58 to 65 FPS here, I believe. So a decent jump. So that was the town. I'm back into the intro of the game again. I just want to show you guys how this runs over here with DLSS. For me at native, I was sitting at 80 FPS here, I believe. So around a 20 FPS increase. And again, the GPU is being held back. It's sitting at 80% usage. So we have headroom there as well. And for the graphics, it does look pretty good with DLSS. I can't really see any extra softness or like any blurriness. So it's definitely usable, I would say. And for me, it's definitely worth it because we have more headroom now in the GPU for those heavier scenes. And hopefully we can actually avoid falling below 60 FPS like we did with native 1080p. Let's back out, guys. Play at 1440p, max settings, no DLSS, and see how we go. 1440p, same settings with no DLSS now. And right here we are sitting at 44 to 50 FPS. It does look much better, guys. Playing at 1440p does make a massive difference. The game does look way better. Super sharp now. Still not as good as Alan Wake for me, or like Avatar. But again, it does look quite nice. And the game did stutter at the start, keep that in mind. It isn't the smoothest right now, but I'm sure it will smooth out as we keep playing. And of course, back here again with DLSS at the balance preset. Yeah, surprisingly, the game isn't looking as sharp as before. And I'm not sure if you guys can see this on the video, but the grass doesn't look great either. But FPS wise, we are way above 60 now. It's the low 60s up into the low 70s pretty much. And yeah, back into the intro one more time. As you guys can see, we're sitting into the 80s and the 90s. The game does stutter like before, so nothing's changed there. But obviously it does better once you leave that city area. Alright, time for the RTX 4060. I'll see you guys there. Time for the RTX 4060. Playing at 1080p. Medium settings now. No DLSS to begin with. Here we go with that. There we go. Yeah, I'm gonna guess that natively this will run quite poorly. But so far in this section... There we go, yeah. We're sitting into the 50s. Let's walk back to the end here. And turn around. Yep, 40 FPS up into the high 40s. It's pretty inconsistent, I would say. It goes up into the 50s and falls back down into the 40s, which makes the game stutter as well. So yeah, low 40s to the low 50s on average, it seems like in this section. But at first glance, this looks the same as the high settings to me. It's very similar in how it looks. So yeah, decent start. The game is definitely playable as is. It isn't ideal, obviously. 60 FPS is the goal. So let's use DLSS and see how we go there. And back again with DLSS at the quality preset. we are sitting into the 60s now in this section. So yeah, around a 20 FPS increase pretty much, or near there. So I'll show you guys how this game looks as well, while we're at it. I think at 1080p it does look quite nice, as good as before pretty much. But at 140p, and probably 4K as well, the game does lose its sharpness with the DLSS. Alright, back here again of course, back into the intro. And the FPS is all the way up into the 90s. It's pretty inconsistent. It fell down to the 70s there as well at the same time. But on average it is sitting into the 80s and the 90s. Alright, 440p, no DLSS at the medium settings. Let's see how we go. Again, I spoke about this during the 3080 part, but on the PS5, this game has two modes. One where it's playing at 440p, upscaling to 4K at 30 FPS, and the other where it's playing at 40, up to 60 at 1080p, and then upscale to 440p. And the 4060 is doing 30 FPS, I guess mostly. And obviously once we leave this section, in this town, the FPS will go a lot higher, into the 40s and the 50s probably. But yeah, in this town, 30 FPS barely. Alright, playing with DLSS now, the balance preset. Right here we're sitting to the high 50s and the low 60s, but if I turn around, it should fall a bit lower. Yep, there we go. It's the low 50s. The high 40s and the low 50s pretty much in this section. Is the game playable? Of course it is, but it isn't that 60 FPS that we're looking for. One last time for the 4060, back into the intro, and FPS wise, we are into the 70s and the 60s of course. So yeah, I think it looks good. It plays mostly well as well. It can't get 60 at all times at 440p, but I would say it's still playable. And lastly for the 4060, frame gen at 1080p. And look at that guys. It's around 90 to 110 FPS. Way better than before. So yeah, frame gen is also an option for this card. And again, frame gen with 440p, we're sitting at 70 FPS here now. So there we go. It's around 70 to 80 FPS. Alright, cool. Time for the RTX 2070. See you guys there. Time for the RTX 2070. Playing at 1080p, medium settings, no DLSS. Here we go. Sitting into the low 40s with dips into the mid 30s here. I think on a controller, this game is definitely playable at 30 FPS. Some hate 30 FPS, but others can actually play it, so it all depends. And even out here, a stable 60 is not doable. We're sitting into the 40s and the mid 40s. Wow, even the low 30s again. That is crazy. Back here again with quality DLSS. Doing much better. Into the low 50s now instead of the 40s. And even the mid 30s. So for the 4060 and the 2070, DLSS is definitely a must for 1080p. But at least out here, we are getting a more stable 60 FPS experience. Last card, the GTX 1060, 6GB. Playing at 1080p, low settings, no FSR for now. Deal with that. Alright, low settings does look quite a bit worse. Wow, it looks way worse. And even then, below 20 FPS. I guess a decent start. With FSR 3 we can get a stable 30, but depending on how old your CPU is, you might get bottlenecked regardless. Okay, FSR 3 active at the quality preset, and the FPS is now sitting at 21. So, not much of a gain. I tried using FrameGen as well, and FrameGen felt awful. I was sitting at 40 FPS for that one, but yeah, the game just wasn't feeling good. But you can try it out if you want. It is a demo, it's free. Just give it a shot and see how it goes for you. But FSR 3 for me wasn't really working well at all. So yeah, that's pretty much it guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Next video. See you guys there.